Hey, welcome to Podmas Day 11, the penultimate day. Today I am recording to you from my bathroom, so apologies for the sound. Although I shouldn't really apologise for the sound, whatever. I'm going to do my makeup while I'm talking to you. It's probably the first time I've worn makeup in, I don't know, what feels like months. I don't really wear too much makeup anymore. I used to. And sometimes, it's really weird actually. I've always been a massive product junkie, so I do know a lot about beauty and makeup and whatever. And I've always been into products. When I was younger, I used to experiment a lot, like everybody does. But for some reason, people would always say, yeah, you don't ever look like you're wearing makeup, which I used to take as a massive insult. So I'm like, well, I've just spent hours putting my makeup on and you think I don't look like I'm wearing makeup. But I'm just one of those people, I never put enough on. I'm definitely the natural look, which is basically looking like you're not wearing makeup. Also, I have quite oily skin, so, well, it's actually more dehydrated. It is dehydrated rather than oily, but makeup doesn't really stay on my skin the way that it does on people who have dry skin face. And it means I have to wear a lot of primers and make sure that I wear oil-free makeup if I want it to stay on my skin anyway. Wow. This is 2 minutes of chat about makeup, and the prompt is how I encourage diversity. Now, I added this in with not much thought to what I would say, which is pretty arrogant, I suppose, in a way, or ignorant, I don't know. And as I started to get closer to this day, I started to feel a bit I don't know, nervous of what I was going to say, because I felt a bit like, well, I'm the one that set this, so I really should be the one that encourages the most diversity, which of course isn't true. But so I have a complicated relationship with diversity, I suppose, because I am what is known as white passing. I'd never heard of that term until Kate O'Sullivan told me about it. I can pass for being white, but I'm not white. I am half Egyptian, and, therefore a member of a marginalised community in some sense, and mixed race. When I was growing up in a very white area, I was regularly called racial slurs that basically referred to Pakistani people. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And I was regularly called that. My skin was a lot, I think I was a lot more brown then, and also I just looked a lot different. And I still look different, definitely, but it's just that I now am older and live in a more diverse area. Or certainly when I was in London, I wasn't exotic anymore. But when I was growing up, there really wasn't anybody else that looked like me. And I remember just desperately wanting to have light skin. I hated when we went to Egypt, or anywhere. I just hated being out in the sun. I hated tanning, which is crazy because when I got older, I really, really, I'm a massive sun worshipper now. You can't get me out of the sun. And I love the fact that I never burn and I go brown straight away. The darker, the better. So when I was growing up, I was very ashamed of that side of myself. And particularly that I was half Egyptian. And of course, after September the 11th and, Arabs became persona non grata, not that they ever were. I think I didn't necessarily shun that side of myself, but I didn't celebrate it. Although I've always said things like I'm a Palestinian sympathiser and, 100% would put myself in the camp of pro-Palestine openly as well, I wouldn't say I advocate for any of the Arab communities in the same way that I advocate for the earth or animals, which I suppose in a way is a little bit perverse, isn't it? So when it came to how I encourage diversity and thinking about how I encourage diversity, I wanted to give a little bit of background about me first. And I suppose I now want to talk a little bit about how I am learning about being an ally and encouraging diversity and how you can too. I have a few different, I am very small, but I do have a few different platforms where I can amplify other people's voices. So, if you're listening to this podcast and you have an Instagram account, a blog, anything, then you're in the same position as me. Whether you're small like me or, you've got a huge platform. What you do with that platform is completely up to you, but I think it's important to say you do have a responsibility, or you certainly have the means to encourage diversity. But, what that means to you and whether you do it or not is a completely different matter. And firstly, I want to say there's no shame in any of this, because I am not even remotely perfect and I don't do it enough, to the point where I feel kind of ashamed of myself, if I'm completely honest. But one of the things that I have been exploring and doing is with the podcast, because I think that is an area where it's where I have the biggest audience. 50,000 of you listened in the past 2 months. So that's a big platform to share, it's just a big platform. And Instagram as well, I only have 5,000 followers, but it's still, if I've got more than 10, then I have the responsibility to be amplifying voices. And both on Instagram, I try to, okay, this is not perfect how I'm saying this. So 2 things that I've done. So with the podcast, I realised that up until season 3, basically no guests were people of colour or differently abled, and they were all heteronormative, and there was nobody from the LGBTQ community, as far as I'm aware. And I say as far as I'm aware because maybe somebody was bisexual or queer and I didn't know about it, or maybe somebody had a neurological disorder and it wasn't open about it or whatever. So I'm just covering like a bit of a disclaimer there that there's certain things that nobody's going to be necessarily aware of, because I didn't do a diversity questionnaire for everybody, but I think I would like to say that it's safe to say that I didn't pick people for the fact that they were representing a certain marginalised community. I just went with the people that were around me, and the people that were around me and the people that I'm friends with are all white, straight people. And that to me was the biggest realisation, the biggest issue, because if you are in an echo chamber of your own making, it really is up to you to get out of that, because you're never going to see anything different, and you're never going to be able to support other people if you're just sat in a white bubble. So I actively decided, and it was kind of, the guest rota had been sort of done for season 3, so I was in a bit of a tricky position in that I had sponsors for season 3, so I was committed to certain guests. But I made sure that I had a guest who represented a couple of different communities, and that we talked about those things as well. So Starmy Sunday is a woman of colour. We didn't talk about that at all, actually. We talked about body positivity, but Kate O'Sullivan is queer, and we specifically talked about LGBTQ, what it means, what it's like to be out online, what it's like to be an ally, because Kate really is just the most tremendous ally. And I also talked to Rida, who is Before and Again, and we talked about what it's like to be biracial. And yeah, so that was pretty important. And for the seasons moving forward, I want to go much further than that. And I want it to feel a bit more natural as well, because obviously in this season, both Kate and Rida are my friends, and I'll also probably be talking to Rabia. And Instagram is a really good example of where I got myself into a massive hole of really, I'm going to say it was boring. All I saw was the same people, the same white women, making the same pictures, and nothing was inspiring me. And that's not their fault. It's my fault. I just, Instagram pushes you into a hole of liking. If you like one picture, they show you similar pictures. The algorithm is designed to keep you looking at little categories, boxes. And it's narrow. It's so narrow. So it really is up to you to kind of get yourself out of that and make sure that you're following lots and lots of different things. So I actively, but the good thing about Instagram is that it's really easy to start actively seeking out and searching different things, because once you start searching for different things, it will show you different things. So I just really have been doing that. And now when I log onto Instagram and look at my feed and scroll, I see different things. I see lots of different things. And when I'm on stories, I'm not just seeing the same people. I'm seeing lots of different. I'm seeing activists and women of colour and differently abled people and LGBTQ, and I'm actively seeing different things, which is so important. And a couple of other things that I did was the Rachel Cargill, I think it's called Do the Work. I've forgotten now because it was quite a long time ago. And it's for white people, but I straddle both. So she's got a lot of really good resources for really delving into your own white privilege. Because if you are white, then you definitely have it. Of course, we all have various different types of privilege or various different advantages or whatever. And it's important to dig into that. And then the other thing that I've done is I'm working through Layla Efsard's Me and White Supremacy book. It's free. It's really good. It's very uncomfortable. But I would highly, highly recommend it. Actually, LUSA covered it because she started the hashtag Me and White Supremacy and then turned it into a big PDF. And the best thing about it is that she's created this because she wants to be a better ancestor, and so she's done it for free. And one of the emails, I think it was a couple of days ago, because I've had this book now downloaded for about a week, 2 weeks. And she sent a little chaser email of white apathy. Don't let this just sit in your inbox. Don't let it sit in your downloads, because that is white apathy. And then she gave some various different ways that white apathy shows itself. And I looked down at the list and was like, yep. So it is uncomfortable, but also so necessary. So these are some of the ways that I try to encourage diversity, and that I'm trying to work on that in myself. And hopefully I've given you some ideas of how you can too. I hope I haven't rambled on too long or been offensive, but if I have, please call me out on it. Another thing that I did actually was, the zero waste movement, the vegan movement, all of those sort of things, it's very white. And I have applied to be part of a platform called the Ethical Writers. And I was following them, and they're quite small. Anyway, I noticed that everybody they shared was white. Everybody. And so I messaged them about it and said, I've just noticed that the voices that you amplify are just white women, and that doesn't feel good to me because I feel excluded. So I'm sure that other people do as well. And they replied with the nicest response. It was so not defensive. And then they also put a post up asking for people to share other influencers of colour, which was so cool because they recognised in themselves that they aren't representative. So that's something that you can do if you see a brand that you like, for example, and it only has white models, or it only has size 10 models, or it only has 25-year-old models, which, let's face it, is pretty much all brands, then you can send them a message and say, and be nice about it. You don't have to be an asshole, but you can just drop them a message, because for one thing, maybe they're so much in their bubble that they just don't even think about it. And there might be like ethical writers who actually respond and say, yep, you're absolutely right, I'm going to do something about it. Don't just sit and feel excluded or erased. I mean, it's not for me to tell you how to feel, but know that you can use your voice. And it should be on those of us who have more privilege to be using our voice more. So, white men, you should definitely be doing it, but not many white men listen to this podcast. So, white women, yes, you. All right, I'm going to end it there. See you tomorrow.